Okay, so how many of you are okay to see a 5-minute video what I've created on SIPOC? If you are ready, give me a thumbs up. Okay, if you really want to see my video of 5 minutes, 5 to 6 minutes, are you okay to see a 5-minute video? And I don't want anybody to drop out because of that video, because certain people drop out when they see the video. Is it okay to see a 5-minute video? Okay, thank you very much. Let's focus here.
SIPOC is an acronym for Supplier, Input, Process, Output, and Customer. The purpose of the SIPOC diagram is to identify the overall processes within a work system and provide us with an overall perspective. It is also great for supporting the definition, structuring, and scoping of complex work systems, and it also gives us the possibility to highlight problem or weaknesses in the processes within the work system. The SIPOC diagram will help us answering questions such as what is the start and end point of the work system? So basically, what is the scope of the work system? What are the essential steps within the work system? What are the main inputs and outputs? Who are the key customers, internal and external? Who are the key suppliers? And what are the customer demands? In the supplier column of the SIPOC diagram, here we identify the different suppliers of the inputs into the different processes within the work system. This could be persons, departments, machine, processes, internal or external customers, etc. In the input part, we identify the required inputs for each process step: material, data, workforce, knowledge, information, etc. In the process column, we identify the different processes within the work system from the beginning to the end. In the output, we identify the expected output of each process steps: product, yield, information, service, knowledge, material, etc. And then at the last part, we have the customer. Here we identify who are the different customers for each output. And this could be the end user, our colleagues, other departments, customers, or maybe another business, etc. There are many ways of approaching the SIPOC diagram, but the general rule is to always start with the processes. Try to identify the process steps within the work system from the beginning to the end. And then after that is basically a preference of which column you take hereafter. The way I prefer to do it is to, again, start with the processes, identify the outputs of each process step, identify the customer of each output, identify the inputs for each process step, and then identify the suppliers. And there is a general rule that says try to limit the process steps to maximum 7. And this is to keep the overall perspective and not to get into much detail. Because the SIPOC is not intended to go into details. It's basically there, as mentioned earlier, to give you a perspective, an overall perspective of how things are kind of related to each other. Well, let's try to use the SIPOC with a simple example that most of us are probably familiar with: a dining experience at a restaurant. And we're going to try to look at it from the restaurant's perspective. So again, we start with the process, and keep in mind that we are looking at the main processes and we don't want to get into much detail. So in this case, the process would be the customer is arriving at the restaurant, they're assigned to a table, they order some food, they eat the food, they pay their bills, and they leave the restaurant. And these are the process steps. So we start with identifying the processes. And the next step would then be to look at the outputs. What are the outputs? And in this case, we can see that when the customer is arriving at the restaurant, there isn't necessarily an output. In this case, there is no output. So we're just gonna skip that one. And then when the customer is assigned to a table, then you're gonna have the output would be that a table would be occupied. And when the customer is ordering some food, then the output of that would be a written order, something that the waiter has written on a piece of paper. And then when the customer has eaten their food, then you probably were going to have some dirty tableware. And we're going to continue that way. And then we're going to do, again, the same thing. As we said process, output, customer, input, and then we can have suppliers. And you can see I have limited to 6 process steps in this case. Let's look at it again. So we have arriving at the restaurant, and then we have there's no suppliers, input, output, or customers. This is just the process step. And then the next step was get assigned to a table, and here the supplier is the waiter, the input is the table request, the process is the table assigned, the output is occupied table, and the customer is the restaurant guest, because they are the one who are receiving the table. They get to sit at the table. And then step number 3 is the supplier is the restaurant guest. The input is a verbal order because the guest is given an order verbally, and then the process is ordering the food. The output is a written order, and the customer is the waiter or the chef, which way you want to look at it. And this is the way you continue down. And this is a great example to showcase the SIPOC diagram. I'm going to finish this video by giving you some facilitation tips. And the first one would be always use a team approach if possible. And this is because there can be many different entities, many different departments involved. And if you are working with others, they can probably provide you with some inputs that you probably didn't think of. So try to use a team approach. And then as we saw before, then an output does not necessarily need to have an input. And there can be more than one relationship for process, input, and outputs. There can be multiple customers and suppliers feeding the same step. And then at the end, I'm going to repeat this, try to limit the process steps to a maximum of 7 steps.
All right, if you found this video interesting, useful, fantastic, awesome, whatever that you felt, just put it in the chat box and I will show more examples of SIPOC, okay? Thank you very much. And I didn't see many people dropping out, maybe a few, 4 or 5 people dropped out, that's all. Thank you very much. Okay. Right, okay. Okay, so we spoke about these process steps. You can put it in the form of process maps, but generally it is written in steps. Okay, there are from start to end of the process that we see. Okay, now there is a format like this which you can use. I give in the exercise. You can write all the process steps here, which are all the inputs, which are the suppliers, customers, and outputs here. Okay, so you can have some tips for brainstorming of the SIPOC. Okay, generally for this brainstorming, you use large pieces of whiteboard or a paper roll. Okay, where you can create these diagrams. You can put some post-it notes. You can move the post-it notes. Some people call it as a swim lane map also, so that there are different functions, departments that are there. And then once you use the sticky notes, you can move all that, because people say, oh, this activity comes after this, that activity comes after this. Sticky notes are easier to move. Okay. Now, how many of you are ready for some quick sample SIPOC in service industries? Just type ready in the chat box. And also there is a small quiz at the end of the session. Okay. Okay, sample SIPOC diagrams. If you see in the restaurant, you have seen, you dine in. This is an example that we have seen. Let's say, how many of you like pizza? What type of pizza do you like? Type in the chat box. What type of pizza that you like? So the pizza needs prepare a dough, add sauce, add toppings, add cheese, bake oven, and all that is a process. You need inputs as dough, sauce, pepperoni, cheese, and peppers. And you need suppliers, who is grocery stores, dairy farms, and this thing. Okay, there is a lot of pizza lovers here. The whole pizza is the output, and you are the customer, and this is the process, this is the inputs, and these are the suppliers. Okay, right, there are a lot of varieties of pizza that you want. Okay, I'll give you all the pizzas if you come to my upcoming webinar. Okay. Okay, now if you see another example of in a service industry, typically whatever service that you do, output is a completed service, and whoever receives this service is the customer, And if you see here, what are the process steps? Service representative receives and access customer requirements, communicate with the customers to clarify the needs, perform the necessary task, and maintain the communication throughout. So I'll go into the examples of a particular three different service, but this is, I'm giving SIPOC for the overall service. So input a service requirement and relevant customer information, and the suppliers are service demand sides and customer inquiries. Okay, now let me go into the depth of a hotel booking example. Okay, in the hotel booking example, what is the output? Is booking confirmation, receipt of payment, and room allocation. Okay, that's what generally a hotel room has got. The customers are travelers, family, tourists, and the steps are check availability, reserve the room, process payment, and confirm the booking. Okay, the input requirements, customer references, personal information, payment details, and the supplier inputs. The suppliers are the travel agencies, individual travelers, and corporate organizations. So I try to explain in a very simple way. If it is simple, just type simple in the chat box. Okay. Now, online tech support. Okay, online tech support. Let me give some example of online tech support. For example, issues are there. Many issues are there. You raise the tickets. Okay, so the output is the resolved issues, ticket status, and feedback request. Okay, like you have your internet not working or your mobile phone internet, connectivity is poor. You raise the ticket, right? So the product users, corporate clients, retail customers, whoever it is, for the internet service provider. Okay, so these are all the, let's say, internet service provider. You make a complaint, log in the complaint, assign the technician, troubleshoot, resolve, and close the ticket is the process. And then the inputs are customer compliance, maybe a software detail, device information, warranty status, and the suppliers are tech companies, software developers, IT, whichever is it. Okay, so this is an online tech support. So if this example is useful, whoever found this example useful, type useful in the chat box. I'll share one more, a jovial example. Okay, how many of you like to go to spa? Okay, how many of you like spa, having a nice body massage? How many of you want a nice body massage? Okay, you can give some nice emoticons. Okay, come to my special upcoming webinar and you'll get a nice massage. Okay. Okay, output, process outputs are service completion, payment receipt, and feedback form, and you are the customer. Okay, you might be a regular customer or the first time visitor or gift card holder, and you can schedule appointment, prepare the therapy room. If you're a spa person, you follow this process, right? You schedule the appointment, you prepare the therapy room, you deliver the service, and you process the payment. And finally, the inputs are customer preferences, medical history, they get signed also. Okay, and the suppliers are product suppliers, therapist, and customer reference. Okay, if you found this, those of you who found these examples useful, just type useful in the chat box. Okay, so you can give n number of examples. This is a photocopy. Okay, this is a photocopy example. Put the original for photocopy, close the lid, adjust the setting, press the start button, and remove the original copies. Okay, outputs are copies, customer is you, and then the inputs can be copier and office, and suppliers can be office supply company and yourself. Okay, so this photocopy example is useful, type useful in the chat box. Let me give you a last one example. Okay, if you see here, customer request for travel, book the airline reservations, and you do the airline reservation. The requirements are, this is ideally, I would like you to write the requirements. Destination, time, travel approval code, initiates reservations, company profile, all the details are the requirements for this input. And who provides this inputs? Okay, what are the inputs? That flight schedule, company travel information, availability, request for reservation, etc. And supplier is airline, company, traveler, etc. And outputs, right? Service, time to process, cost, carrying cost, travel, itinerary, etc. And any questions you have, definitely I'll answer towards the end. Okay, I'll answer all the questions towards the end. Requirements are okay. Customer requirement are professional and courteous, less than 10 minutes, moderate, etc. Zero defects, profit margin should be, all that is customer requirement. And the customers can be corporate, traveler, client, company, whoever it is. Okay. All right, if that was useful, type super useful in the chat box. So we will end up with the quiz. How many of you are ready for the quiz? Just I'll take 2 more minutes for the quiz. How many of you are ready? Type super ready in the chat box. All right. If you're ready, just a moment. Okay, this is a SIPOC quiz. Okay, the first, what is the acronym for SIPOC? Stand for very simple, A, B, C, D. What is the right answer? Obviously, A, right? So all of us have learned this, very easy. So all of you get full marks in this, okay? The second question is, what does P represent in SIPOC? I will not even type the choice, okay? What does P represent in SIPOC? Of course, process, okay? So all of you know that. So planning, performance, process, production, and the right answer is, of course, the process. Okay. Now, which element of SIPOC identifies the entities that provide necessary resources for the process? Which element of SIPOC? Let's see. Which element of SIPOC identifies the entity? Now, this is a little bit tricky question, right? Okay, the correct answer is suppliers, okay? Resources for the process. Okay, that's why I made it a little trickier, okay? Okay, and final question is, in SIPOC diagram, which component refers to the end product or services delivered by the process? Of course, that's pretty simple. The correct answer is output.